Nicolás Maduro's more than decade in power came to be defined less by governance than by defiance. Even as the drums of war intensified at his borders, Maduro was still singing a different tune. The leader was one of Latin America's most polarizing, loved and loathed both at home and abroad. But few foreign leaders opposed him as openly as Donald Trump, who accuses Maduro of being the leader of a drug cartel.
Venezuela's been a very bad actor. They've been, as you know,
The first time Trump was in the White House, he went after Maduro in the courts for narco-terrorism. Trump 2.0 looked more like this. At least 35 strikes since September on boats allegedly carrying drugs from Venezuela, and an offer of up to $50 million for information leading to his arrest. Maduro rose through the ranks from bus driver to vice president under late socialist leader Hugo Chavez. Even then, relations with the US were tense. Chavez had nationalized the country's oil industry, kicking out American companies like ExxonMobil, cutting his citizens' poverty in half. Maduro inherited this legacy when Chavez died in 2013. He took the reins of a country with the world's richest oil reserves, something its people would scarcely have guessed from the poverty he led them into. They faced shortages in food and medicine while suffering under hyperinflation.
It's not enough. It's really not enough. So what I do is go to the store and buy a couple of things, and then you see you spend all of it. Money flies away rapidly.
A video of Maduro eating steak cooked by the famed chef Salt Bae added to the criticism back home. Nearly 8 million Venezuelans voted with their feet, fleeing the country in the last decade. But his grip got tighter. The 2018 elections marked a turning point. Regarded as neither free nor fair, Maduro refused to stand down, cracking down on protesters, calling on him to resign. Opposition leader Juan Guaido had declared himself president and was backed by the US and other countries, but he eventually fled to the US. And Maduro's political opponent in the 2024 elections was barred from running, Maria Corina Machado. She escaped in a secret mission in December to collect the Nobel Peace Prize for her work in promoting democracy in Venezuela.
I am very hopeful Venezuela will be free.
This is who Machado now wants to take interim control. Edmundo González Urrutia, the man who ran in her place in the last elections, while Trump says America will run things instead. But today, inside the country, where the streets are empty, many are waiting to see who, if anyone, emerges from the ruins of Maduro's regime.
Well, earlier I spoke to Phil Gunson, a senior analyst for the International Crisis Group, who's been based in Caracas for more than 25 years. I began by asking how he thought President Trump running Venezuela would work.
I don't know how it's going to work because what we can see, or what we appear to have witnessed since the early hours of this morning, when we were woken by loud explosions in Caracas, what appears to have happened is fairly significant operation, clearly, to blow up a few military installations, snatch the president and his wife, and take them out of the country. But so far as we know, there are no, U.S. forces left here in Venezuela. So it's not clear to me what Mr. Trump means when he says that they are here. I don't know who they are. The CIA is probably here, yeah.
Well, presumably the plan is to install Maria Corina Machado, but I suppose that what remains of the regime might have other ideas.
Yeah, I'm not even sure that Trump has it clear. He's been very unclear in the past as to exactly who Maria Corina Machado is. He doesn't seem to be able to remember her name. And when he was asked this morning in Washington about the possibility that the US would be backing the arrival of Maria Corina and Edmundo González, who won the election in 2024, he was very vague about that. And he said, well, we'll have to see. And he mentioned the fact that there is, of course, a vice president in Venezuela, Delcy Rodriguez, who under the constitution here takes over in the absence of the president. So I don't think that the US, or at least Donald Trump, has very clear in his mind exactly what is happening or what's going to happen.
So, what does the Venezuelan military do now, in your view? And what do the people of Venezuela do?
Well, the people of Venezuela are very prudently staying at home because not only do they realize that they can't guarantee there won't be another strike, but also because the government here has cracked down very severely on any forms of protest. So nobody is rushing into the streets to celebrate. Particularly because everybody, I think, here is well aware that it's only Maduro who's gone. They may be popping corks in South Florida at the moment, but I don't think anybody's rushing into, celebrations on the street.
Living there as you do in Venezuela, do you feel a sense of anxiety, really, about the next few days and weeks?
Yes, I worry that the violence may not be over. The possibility that the military might split has always been one of the objectives of Washington. The other possibility is that that doesn't happen, that Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president, takes office, that the government goes on more or less as before, and possibly even worse, because it's quite conceivable that things will get worse for Venezuelans rather than better. And it seems to me that the path to what we all would like to see, or most of us anyway, which is a peaceful transition to a more democratic and humane society in Venezuela, political system, the path is very, very narrow and strewn with obstacles, much as it was before the bombing.
Might the military have already split, given that Trump has been boasting about turning the lights off in Caracas? That there could be some help being given already.
We know that US special forces are extremely skilled, but to come in and to snatch the president and his wife without apparently sustaining any casualties, or at least any fatalities, it seems very unlikely that that could be done without some form of internal complicity. But I think it would be unwise to leap from that to an assumption that the military are therefore going to split. I think there's an enormous, if you like, inherent inherent desire on the part of the military as an institution not to allow any internal divisions to cause the collapse of the armed forces, because they know that if that were to happen, then they could end up shooting and killing each other, and they really don't want to do that.
Phil Gunson, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.